Hello, dear listeners. What I am currently doing is wrong, dirty, unspoken of, something that should not happen. But unfortunately, it is, and maybe a small part of my ego likes it, but truly, it does not make me happy to be doing this. So myself and Kelan basically have had a kind of mutual agreement that we would never do a podcast episode individually. However, essentially I got tricked, I got duped by Anan Anwar into this. I'm disappointed in him. I feel conned and tricked, and there's not much more I can say about that. No, okay, all fuckery aside. Yeah, I mean, I'm not proud that I'm doing this on my own. The reason being is that Kelan is currently working 2 jobs. He went from having 1 job and fucking up job interviews to then securing, well, in fact, he got 2 jobs in a row, accepted one of them, and now for a few weeks he's working 2 jobs at once. If I have used... Oh, Darwin's in the room. We're not alone. Keelan's just turned into a dog. He's staring at me. He might start barking in a minute. Kelan is now working night shifts and also coaching, and if this intro is being used, it's basically because he has failed to show up on I don't even know when I'm going to put this up. He's failed to show up because he's too tired, which frankly is very understandable. But basically what ended up happening, Anan listened to the previous podcast where we kind of ribbed him a little bit for the whole creativity fiasco at the Art of Motion, and was like, hey, we should have a chat. And I was like, yeah, cool, like, let's talk about it. And he was like, I think I've got some insights. And I was like, cool, yeah, like, let's have a little phone call. So we arranged it, and then he was like, oh, I assume you want me to hit record. And I was like, oh, I didn't actually think about doing this as a little podcast feature. And I was thinking we might have a 5-10 minute chat, you know, hi, I'm Anna, and I'm going to clear up why this happened, blah, blah, blah. And then I could then record the main episode with Kelan, and I could be like, oh yeah, by the way, related to last episode, here's a little insight from Annan about the judging. It turned into a 43-minute long conversation about judging, which frankly it's a great listen. And he clarifies and covers a load of really useful stuff to know. But it's an episode in itself. So now there's this huge chunk of audio that I want to put out because it's valuable. You want to listen to it, and I'm sure you'll enjoy this episode. But it doesn't feature Kelan. So I'm sorry, Kelan, and I'm sorry, listeners, for the lack of him. But yeah, you know. Anyway, I've fucking waffled for many, many moons now. Let's dive into it, and I'll catch you all at the end.
All right. Here we go.
I have a confession.
What's up, love?
I didn't even think about recording this initially until you were like, I assume you want me to record. And I was like, yeah, probably should. I was like, oh, I just thought we were going to have a chat.
Oh, no, I mean...
We may as well put it on the record, yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah. I'm all...
Your second online beef of the month.
Oh, I know. I'm on a roll, aren't I? You gonna call me out, Giles? Let's go. Let's fucking go. Let's do this.
It was that moment of going through the list. I couldn't think for so long, and then I was like, it's Anan. Anan's the one.
I had a good chuckle sitting here. I'm like, oh fuck. Oh fuck.
Anyway, hey, how's jet lag hitting you?
It's all right. It's not so bad. Yesterday was awful. Today was a little bit better, but we're slowly getting back to normal time. Yeah. Waking up at 1 p.m. is considered normal for me anyway.
Jesus. All right. So, I mean, actually, so you messaged me and you were like, oh, should we have a chat about the judging? Was that prior to you listening to the podcast?
Well, I was already getting whispers, and then I'm like, oh, you guys did a wrap up, and I saw your story that directly talks about this issue that was coming up again and again, and then I listened, and I'm like, okay, this is actually a good opportunity to actually air this out, because it got to the point where I didn't realize there was so much confusion around this particular category. I mean, it was always been confusing, but it wasn't quite as clear to me that we were still operating on an older firmware in regards to how we think about some of these categories. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to, while I'm under the gun,
I mean,
really
it's you made it while it's relevant. Yeah,
because before now we haven't actually had a good long form platform where that wasn't just visually based, that we could actually talk about the ideas of our sport. Until now,
Totally.
Podcasts are a thing. We can actually do these things online together here, and then now we're actually going to have proper conversations about the things that actually matter. So it's fucking
good. And actually, something normally I find with Art of Motion, the main talking point is usually just who came first. Usually it's like, oh, DK came first, he didn't deserve that. It's always just like, oh, I'm pissed about that. So it's interesting to see that for sort of, not for once, because I'm sure it has happened in the past, but it's like there's a specific person who, because I mean, Josh didn't even get into the finals, but there's like this certain thing about this certain aspect of the judging, and the judging has obviously been a huge topic this year anyway.
It's a huge topic every year to my ears. I mean, no one wants to talk about it before the comp, but afterwards everyone's got an opinion.
Of course, suddenly everyone's an expert, so. But yeah, I mean, anyone listening to this is going to have, they'll know the what's led to this, which essentially the main talking point of this Art of Motion was that Josh Malone obviously did a sort of very impressive run, which a lot of people, I think, to be completely honest, myself included, thought should have had a higher score with regards to creativity. You have been and are the creative judge at Art of Motion for years now, right?
So I've had several years now, probably going on 5 Art of Motions.
Yeah, so you sort of technically know your shit. So I mean, just I guess the sort of simple question is what was your thought process behind that scoring?
I agree. The two main things that came up that were contentious were Josh's placement and Diddy getting through. I think those were the two big ones that people felt not quite right about. But first, let's deal with Josh's one. Just to be clear, so after the competition, I've gone through and I've watched the event again as I normally do and just kind of check our performance, see how we did, and is it still right?
I mean, in the moment, it's hectic.
Oh, of course, yeah. You drew.
It feels like the judges are given so much time, but when you're a judge yourself, the time just goes.
Oh no, we were given instructions to have our final scores submitted in less than a minute, and we don't get to sit around and watch the replays like everyone else is doing online. Where as the run finishes, we start taking notes, tallying our scores, considering all the other runs, and we have 30 seconds to a minute to submit, and we don't get a second check. We don't get to ask. We don't get to go, hey, actually, I didn't actually see that properly. Can we see it again? Most of the time, it's really It's really, you get one viewing, and if you miss anything, you're going to have to take your best guess. This is the real downside of live scoring, where the judges have to submit a score and they can't adjust later. But that aside, I do want to lay down some groundwork, because I looked at Josh's run and I can admit that actually I could have scored him higher, but for none of the reasons that people are citing online, which is the most curious thing, which actually, from what I hear, kind of really highlights the fact that people don't quite understand what the hell this category does. So if you don't mind me monologuing for a second, I do want to just lay that down just a little bit. Because creativity has always been a weird thing. If you rewind the clock back 10 years, we decided that, hey, creativity seems to be a big part of this sport. We want it as part of our criteria, which is great. It covers a lot of ground. It actually is a big part of our sport, but it doesn't take much inspection to find some pretty big problems with it. For example, if you run out onto the course and pull an egg out of your ass, and then finish the rest of your run singing Happy Birthday backwards, someone might be tempted to say that was quite creative.
It's art, yeah.
But exactly. So this is the language problem. You might be tempted to say that is creative, but it's not what we mean when we talk about creativity in the context of a competitive sport. What we're looking for is things that we can quantify on a spectrum of difficulty. And just to be clear, everything is difficulty. Just this is a premise that we all have to agree on. Everything is difficulty. Difficulty is difficulty. Doing better in execution is more difficult than doing worse in execution. Getting a better flow score is more difficult than having a bad flow score. And same with creativity. It has to be quantifiably more difficult to do one thing than the other. So everything is difficulty. So when it comes to creativity, there's a bit of a problem because some things are just artsy, but there are a bunch of stuff that we do like that come under the category of creativity that can be quantified. And I break those things down into three things. So when I've been judging, I've been thinking about this. I've broken it down into three areas that satisfy the creativity category. You have trick selection, which is your variation. The different types of flips you do is more difficult than doing less variations of tricks. That seems obvious, right? Josh has this in spades. He's king shit when it comes to this particular part. But then the other two are connections and course. When we're talking about connections, Christian is the poster boy for this particular type of creativity where, he has this economy of movement where his lines are thoroughly planned out in a way that he doesn't wait. There's no wasted movement. He has
he lands exactly where he needs to be for the next thing.
His decision making for his run is down to a science. He has no wasted movement. Every line and decision puts him in place for his next bit. So that's the connections part of creativity. And the last bit is course. My favorite example is Nate, who actually, when you see what he decides to do in his run, it can only be done on that particular course with those particular dimensions. When he swings back and does that cart flippy thing from the bar to the adjacent block. When he does the descent to the window 270 palm flip on the other wall. Those are creative ways of using the course that can only be done in the context of those particular obstacles in that particular arrangement. That is creative. That is the creative part of our sport in regards to the course. So those are the three.
Whereas I guess some people, right, they just train cascading flip combos and then they go, oh cool, here's a place I can put this together, and they'd go, blah, there it is.
Exactly. People have different styles. But if that is the three things that the art of motion creativity criteria that I've been doing for the past few years is looking at. The trick, the variance, the connections, and the course. And
which immediately, if you gave me that list and I then had to sit and re-watch Josh's run, the flips, he's obviously, he's pulling some crazy weird shit out of the bag, but the other two things he then falters in quite heavily.
Exactly. That was my interpretation early on. Now, I remember early on I said that actually upon reviewing it, I actually would have given more points, and that's particularly in the area of connections, where my first interpretation of a lot of his connections were probably negative. On second review, actually, they were better conceived than I originally thought. That is my human error. But they're by no means on the level of Christians. They're not bad, but they're not up there. So when you spread out my category into these three areas, we weigh them equally. So let's say 30% each. If you're going to dissect Josh, how would you score him?
Yeah, it's a good point.
I mean, we could do it. We can do it right now. In regards to trick, he's fucking king shit, right? We can give him, he's full marks. Give him a full 30 right there.
Well up there.
Yeah.
Creativity regarding the course, I'm just trying to remember his line off the top of my head.
Yeah.
It's nothing particularly special. And then, the connections is probably the hardest one, isn't it? Because he's one of those guys who sits very much on the line of, did he fall over, or was it a low landing styled into something else, or was that entirely intentional to be a weird, wacky creative?
And all the judges had difficulty with this because we could have read it either way. I think Josh got unlucky in that moment where most of us read it in not a positive light. We couldn't tell that it was exactly what he wanted or not, or if we even liked it. So that's where, if you give him full marks on his variance, and then what?
He's
his
still slipping on the others,
just get 1, 2, or 3 stars. Would you give him 2 stars for connection?
Yeah, I guess it's. He definitely not 3, and then probably middle between 1 and 2, I would imagine.
On course.
On course.
And then finally on course, use of the course, which was, in my opinion, his weakest.
Probably closer to a 1.
Yes. So add that up. That's 3 plus 2 plus. I that's really rounding it. But I gave him something like 30 for his tricks. I gave him something like 15 to 20 for his connections.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'd put that.
And I gave him 1.5 for course.
Yeah.
And then
do you literally is that literally how you do it?
That is how I break it up. I mean, there is room for a bunch of other factors, but this is, when you dumb it down to, out of 100 and they're all equal, I give them, I ballpark it to, is it a 10, a 20, or a 30? And then I adjust compared to others. But if you got 30, 20, and then 15, that is the realm of 65, maybe 70, if I was being more generous for connections. But that's how I got my score of a 70 for Josh.
Yeah. Red Bull should do a little mini series, couple of minutes apiece per judge in the build up to the comp, explaining their judging techniques.
Well, actually, it's funny you say that, because that was actually on the docket to record, but it was one of those things that got
really?
cut out due to time. We didn't have the cameraman
it would
running
quash
about shooting
a lot.
Stuff. So these things got thrown out in the pre-production.
Yeah, I think a lot of people being able to sit there and go, "Oh, I understand why they've done that," would be but I think, like, I watch the Olympics and I don't understand half of the shit that they judge, but I guess because it's you're less connected. It's when you're so connected that you kind of, your opinion seems way more valid, because you can get on Instagram and shout it, and your friends and other people are like, yeah.
Exactly.
But
just to be clear about this particular thing, it's important for me to say now, because people, even though I say this every year, people still carry with it the old interpretation of creativity, which is this artsy kind of thing. But we have to be very clear about what the creativity category is not. Well, first of all, let me just say that creativity is a fucking terrible name for this category. If you compare it to other sports, they actually already have it in a lot of open-ended expression sports. They call it composition.
Oh, really?
Yes. If you watch, it's been a while for me, but I used to compete in inline skating and wakeboarding in the late 90s, early 2000s. And this part of their sport is also a thing, but they don't call it creativity. They call it composition.
Interesting.
And so if I asked you, what would you score all these athletes on composition, not creativity, all of a sudden your intuitions change, don't they? Yeah,
you're looking at it. It's still subjective because it's judging, but creativity makes it feel so subjective.
Yeah, it's just way off the mark with people's intuitions about what creativity actually means as a word. It just carries too much baggage. I've been trying to fight this for a while, but it's not my job to change names. I'm hired to do a specific job. I show up, I do the work, I do the job, and I leave. Red Bull don't hire me all year round to develop their judging criteria. But it is just to really ram this home, we need to know what creativity criteria is not. It's not style. It's not innovation. It's not the ability for the athlete to surprise me. As all these things, as you're intuiting what Josh is doing to you, why you would think you would have a high creativity score. But that's not part of my job, at least the job of this criteria. Now, we haven't thrown those things out completely. It still exists. What the hell do you think overall impression looks at?
Exactly. You're still sort of seeing it.
Yeah.
But that's a really good point, because I think those two words, creativity and innovation, they kind of, it feels like when you hear creativity, that's what you are judging for, is the innovation.
Exactly. And that's not right, because you can't, it's not quantifiable. You need good judging criteria in all sports are as objective as possible, and try to minimize the subjective side of it as much as they can. It's not as easy as with other sports like time trials or distance jumping, but with a rich enough vocabulary, you can quantify what we're looking at in terms of variation, connection, and course. It's possible. But it's overall impression is where style, innovation, entertainment value, risk reward, all these things come into play. It's not dominant because, again, you really any criteria that is dominant on the subjective part is not reliable. And this really hit home with me when people kept bringing up DK. Okay, I already said that in hindsight I would have scored him above, but just for the sake of argument, let's say they're the same. Someone said, Josh should have got way more than DK. DK's, I think one of your boys said something along the lines of, DK was creative, but we've seen it for so long, now it's not.
which is, I mean, that's immediately a subjective standpoint.
Exactly. If creativity as a category is secondary to the whims of the community's culture and the context of when moves were invented and how who's throwing what moves and at how often they're doing it, that is a really poor way to judge anything. Anything. If it is a terrible way to judge a competition if the athletes have to be aware of what's trending on Twitter. It's fucking stupid. You cannot have that as a major part.
It really is a name issue, isn't it? Because if it just wasn't cool creativity, it would be looked at so differently.
I agree with you, which is why I actually haven't been using that word as much as I can.
Yeah. I think it would be great for more people to hear that, because the second that you have explained this to me, it's just immediately like, yeah, I totally get it. And also now your judging format for that category that shall not be named, immediately then thinking of DK's run, it's like, well, yeah, you think about sort of course and stuff like that. It's course and what was the middle one? How he uses the course.
Course connections and variation.
Connection, because obviously DK's connections are fucking incredible most of the time.
For the career competitive athletes, I'm talking about your DKs and your Christians who play the game as smart as anybody. That's what they're doing when they design their runs. They're picking a wide variation of trick styles from bars, ledges, walls.
To land them exactly where they need to be.
They're choreographing the connections in a way that there's as little waste as possible, and they're trying to use as much of the course in interesting ways as they can.
Yeah.
And to be clear, Josh is an amazing athlete. We were so stoked to hear that he was flying out to do qualifiers because we were really excited to have him in the competition. Shout out to Josh Doey for getting him out there. And he did.
Oh, did he get him out?
Yeah, I think Josh Doey was responsible for getting him a ticket, making sure he was out there for qualifiers.
Oh, sick! I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, that's what I heard. But and he did really well. He was he did not make finals.
Yeah, and also he walked away with so many people like aware of.
Yeah, he was definitely the star. He's the up and coming, like he's the rising star in the last year of our sport, and he added a lot of value by being part of that competition. So. I'm a big fan, but I'm not allowed to score according to who I wish did better. I have
exactly. Yeah.
But that's where I think a lot of the confusion is, where we have this bad interpretation of what creativity actually means, as opposed to what the criteria is actually looking for. And Joey Adrian speaks with probably the most clarity on this issue, which is why when he says he doesn't understand what the hell is going on with creativity, I felt it was really, really important that we had this conversation.
Yeah, totally. I think that's incredibly valuable to hear and for more people to hear. Mm-hmm. But so I think, I definitely in the moment regarding Didi was like, oh, should he get through? And obviously we spoke about this on the podcast. And I think coming away from it, I definitely agreed that he should have got through. But I think I've seen sort of on, as I'm sure you have on Instagram, some people being like, he didn't even deserve to get through to finals. What are your kind of 2 cents on that?
Again, Joey Adrian was very articulate on it that what he did do, he did very well. I mean, extremely well in difficulty. He ticks all the boxes for my criteria, which is why I awarded him the highest scoring criteria from that event for composition, and of course he flows well, and his main downfall was those 2 slip-ups in the middle of his run, and I think he was probably adequately punished. I think losing 50 points on 2 slip-ups is reasonable. But more importantly, it wasn't what he did, but what his competitor didn't do. And sitting right behind him,
especially in that heat,
sitting right behind him, it was Uri's to take, who also did a very high level run, similar to Didi, except that he didn't score nearly as high in difficulty, flow, and creativity, and he also was sloppy twice. His triple full kind of gumbied out, similar to Didi's. Kardahara,
and he had that very low
turn to gainer. That's unfortunate. That was Uri's to take from Didi, because in my opinion, I would have bet on I would have bet on Ed and Christian all day. They're the consistent. Didi has a habit of overcooking his runs with just too much high intensity.
That was, I mean, to be honest, that was fully what I predicted. I had it written down on my phone. I was like, I reckon, and I fucking love Didi to the end of the earth.
Oh, no, but he doesn't have a great competition
I've seen him go too
record.
hard, yeah.
Yeah, I mean...
No, exactly.
And every time he's gotten through to this competition, it's been through video submission. And video submission has a very obvious advantage in that you can do your lines.
You can repeat lines.
You can do 100 lines 100 times. So he's free to go that intense all day long. When it comes to planning this kind of a line for this competition, if you plan a line that you land for 1 out of 5 times, it's going to take 5 art emotions before you win gold. And I think this time he got lucky. I think this was his one, and I mean it's a gamble, but he did it, and I think he totally deserved to take it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's interesting actually. I think if you ran Art of Motion again tomorrow, even though Didi won last comp, would not confidently be like, oh, he's got it in the bag.
If you were asking me to bet, I'd still bet on Ed and Christian all day, just because they're that caliber of competitive athlete where they have the difficulty, they think in the right ways about the course, but they tailor their run so that it's plausible to execute it, because execution is such a powerful criteria. Is one of the most,
and it's so easy to go from you could be scoring a 90 to a 50 in a second.
Exactly.
Like that's the thing. The others are all predetermined basically by your choices beforehand, whereas this is really, it can just go, can't it?
When you say that, I'd say 2 things. Like, if you want to think about a useful way I think about it is difficulty and creativity reward your decisions before the competition's even started. Flow and execution will reward you on how well you carry it out.
Yeah.
So if if you describe to me, if I've seen the course and you describe to me in as much detail as you can what you're going to do, I could give you a fairly accurate difficulty and creativity score. But flow and execution really depends on how you carry it out.
Yeah, totally.
What were you saying earlier that I wanted to talk about? Damn it, what did you say?
Me going to the gym?
No, I mean just now.
Because I failed on that, and then I had Burger King. So.
Giles.
By the way, well done to... it was more of... I was kind of inducting Sarah at our gym because she wanted to start going. So I'll show her the ropes, and then we were hungry on the way back. So,
okay.
Didn't go so well. Well done on the skill qualifier. No, not even fucking qualifier. Skill podium.
Thank you. That was really
Lion
fun.
City. As a fellow, I don't want to call myself old, but I'm getting there.
I think we can get away with saying that now, Giles. I think it's
no.
The jury's in. It's
the eternal youth. But I aspire to. I would have liked to have just taken part. I think even at that.
I think.
Have someone kind of my own age. I wouldn't say you're my own skill level. I think you're far more apt at that style of movement. But
well, I did have a couple rough years before this one. I was
this year you've been, or last 12, 16 months you've been smacking it.
Yeah, I really before then I was suffering a lot of nagging injuries that I just couldn't shake, and then I got serious about my physiotherapy, and then I just had like the best 18 months. I'm in the best shape I've been in for several years, so it feels great to actually be able to throw in with the kids. That being said, I was, my body was wrecked for like 3-4 days after that. That's how you know.
And everyone else has sprung
everyone
back.
Else is still training. So I can pull it out when I need to, but I don't have the bounce back. I really just can't just go at that rate. I need to space out my moments of heavy intensity.
Yeah, for sure. Mine's once a year at the at some form of event qualifier. I'll do a fun run, make everyone laugh, and then get back in my shell.
Hey, we can go to NAPC next year and try to throw in with their skills.
We should. I did it the year before. I didn't do it this year actually.
I really want to. I've somehow missed Canada twice already. Like every time I try to go, I just don't get my visa in time, and I have to sit on the border.
No, it's definitely a fun one. It's very relaxed, which is really nice. So
no.
Yeah, what were you... What? So there was something else?
I don't know.
Art of Motion related, I assume.
I assume, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. There's so much about the criterias and the judging and the competitions that we talk about amongst the athletes and the organizers, but just don't get publicly disseminated because nothing's official. There's no organizing body that says any of our ideas are the official ideas. So all these thoughts about what creativity is or isn't, that's just me from showing up year after year and noticing things that don't make sense, trying to think deeply about
slowly kind of chipping away at it.
You're just chipping away at it, and then you put your ideas into practice in small amounts, and you start to get a feel about what works and what doesn't. But by all means, this isn't the only, there are a lot of, like you said, some people hate the art of motion judging, and a lot of them have legitimate reasons to dislike it. For one, that's what we were talking about earlier about how important execution was, because upon explanation, every category is equally weighted, right? Everything's worth 100 points. But I don't think that's actually true. You want to know what I think the most important category is?
What?
It's definitely probably execution.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. Because at the end of the day, you can try whatever you want, but unless you're actually landing it, it doesn't really matter, does it?
Well, in terms of scoring, execution has the widest spread. So no matter how hard you work at creativity, it's very hard to get a score that's miles away from all the others. If you look at my scoring from the event, the average is between high 50s to mid 70s. That's my spread. But if you look at the spread of the scores for the category execution, it's much, much wider, which means it has much, much more power to jostle your position in the rankings. So,
for sure,
doing badly on execution hurts way more than doing badly on creativity or doing badly on not as good on flow. So that's what I think makes execution much, much more important than a lot of the other categories. Which is actually fine. You just have to know why. You have to pay attention to the spread of scores. I've intentionally made my spread quite narrow compared to execution and difficulty because I don't think my particular category should be able to swing you around the scoreboard as much as, say, executing difficult tricks or landing your tricks.
Yeah, because I mean, imagine Nate comes in and does a fairly sort of average line but lands everything perfectly. Josh comes in, does the world's most creative, well, I don't want to say creative now, I'm trying to avoid the word, but you know what I mean. Josh does one of his lines but lands everything terribly and still ends up scoring very well, and it's like, oh well, he was creative, and it's like, oh okay, I mean, you cause a riot, like.
Yeah, exactly. So
because I think at the end of the day, everyone who does parkour knows what a good landing feels like. Like they know what it should feel like to do things well, and therefore that should be the thing that is kind of the swaying factor. Yeah,
I think so. But that's where I stand on.
I think you've
inconsistent. So Joey, Adrian, if you want to rewatch the competition and just kind of take my new explicit stance on how I judge creativity, that would be helpful. Maybe that might make more sense now.
For sure. I think would have cleared up a lot for a lot of people.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on the? Because I mean, well, there's two things. Your opinion on showing the scores throughout, and also your opinion on the showcasing the first score, i.e., runner number one. And because obviously it's the first score is always the hardest one to judge, right? And the first few are always kind of the hardest because you're essentially that they can really set the sort of precedent, the whole thing with regards to the judging. Obviously the heats kind of help that, but what's your opinion on not showcasing? Because I know I've heard this brought up a few times, not showcasing the scores of the first people, like the first three, and then doing it based off of that. And then also, what's your thoughts on just not showing any judging until the end and then being like, oh, Didi won?
I'm not sure. Well, doing it closed allows the judges to recalibrate their scores against all the other runs they watch, right? It's not as entertaining. A big part of the Red Bull event is that it's enjoyable to watch. So I understand why that decision for live scoring is necessary. And
I think that's probably why we see it across pretty much every single comp in any sport is because a comp is essentially a level of entertainment, isn't it?
And if the judges are well trained and competent and in the right headspace, they can be fairly consistent. That if we were talking in 2013 where we were watching 18 runs, yes, that first runner has a huge disadvantage for many, many reasons. Now, because of the heat system, which I am very much in support for, that mitigates a lot of those issues. I think, just to be clear about why we do heats, I think that's another thing I get asked quite a lot. And I think for some people, it's not quite clear. So let me get into that. The reason why we have heats, we've always had, before heats, we had just a straight up, score 18 people and then, the top 6 to 8 go through, right?
Yeah.
But the problem wasn't in the very highest scores or the very lowest scores. Those tend to be very obvious. But the problem was in the middle of the pack. If you take a hypothetical, you were judging 2 people, and I asked you to put them in order of best to worst. It's quite easy, right?
Yeah.
And then you can do that for 2, you can do that for 5, you can do that for 8.
But there's a certain point you hit where it just becomes...
But at a certain point, watching 18 runs and trying to order them becomes very difficult because most people's scores fall on a normal distribution curve, which is to say that most people's runs are average. So when a lot of people's scores are actually in the middle, it's very easy to pick the top, very easy to pick the bottom, but the fair majority of people's scores are going to be quite close in the middle. And so
out of 8, you kind of start muddling between 5 to 10, right?
When you're watching run 18, you can't keep track in your head 17 runs and all the details of those runs. That's why we have the heats. It's why each judge watches only one criteria and not all criteria. And this is to support the cognitive capabilities of a human brain. It can only follow 6, we can follow 6 people better than we can follow 8, and we can track 3 to 4 things better than we can track 10 to 12.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's why we have the heats, and that's why you have each judge only watching one as opposed to judging everything.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense. The other thing I just remembered actually is, and this is more of an assumption, but Didi getting best trick on the, I don't know what the official term would be. It was kind of scooter double frisbee or double side.
The turn vault double side or double frisbee.
Yeah, there was some opinions saying, oh, it should have been the Webster to the whatever the hell that combo was.
By who?
By Didi, it was the Webster down to...
I think it was the Ariel to Kardahara.
That's it, Ariel's Kardahara, and then also Christian's filling back out. Why?
I think just...
I mean,
the things that were on the table were obviously Didi's first big combo, which was the Ariel to Kardahara. The reason why we didn't pick that is because of how sloppy the landing was. When you're thinking about best trick,
that's kind of what I assumed.
We're picking the trick that's going to be shown hundreds of times around the world. In numerous videos, and this is what we pick. If you're going to get best trick, you have to kind of land it with a bit more conviction. I think if he
you don't want to.
It feels dirty if that wins best trick. You have to really own it. It's
close. Like a skateboarder winning best trick, and they're like spinning around with their hands on the floor trying to stay on the board.
You really gotta own it, then a close second, I think, was Ed Scott's double cork, or possibly full in back out. But I think full in back out is just a very hard trick, but too vanilla compared to the
very true, yeah.
Like amplitude and intensity of the trick counts for a lot. Like he pulled that off with so much style. He did it on a reasonably dangerous part of the course where if you lose control, you fall off the back.
Yep.
And it's a hard trick. So it's hard, it's sexy, and there's high risk reward. For the judges, that was pretty clear.
Yeah, for sure. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like I said, I think you've cleared up a lot of talking points there.
I hope so. It was getting hot in my corner for a little bit.
You get off the plane back in Thailand, you're like, oh, for fuck's sake, it's happened again.
Oh God, I'm gonna get lynched. The mob is after me. I think
running the country. Yeah.
The worst elements of the internet is the angriest people tend to be the loudest.
For sure.
But I hope that clears up a lot of things because creativity was a bit of a silly thing to be holding on to and not getting clear for so long, especially in light of the fact that NAPC dropped it ages ago. We knew that they dropped creativity for a more objective judging. It's still in it. It's a minority. It's a minority.
Yeah,
consideration.
people are still looking at it, but it's
yeah. So I like that NAPC was progressive and brave enough to just make that decision and experiment, because that is the problem with this big art of motion, is that it's something that's big and works. No one wants to break anything because the stakes are high. If you change something 1 year and then the whole thing falls apart. Yeah, when everyone's got all these big ideas about this needs to change and then you need to do that, and why don't women have more places or less places, and everyone's got an idea about how it should be, and they're just such big changes. And with big organizations, there's a sort of feeling like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. We got loads of other things to worry about. The fact that we get one of these at all is a miracle, because it's expensive as hell. And of course, we'd like to do more things better, but it is a matter of money, time, and manpower. These things are limited, and we have to choose what we're doing. And I don't represent Red Bull in any capacity, except when I'm sitting there doing the job. But as soon as it's over, I don't get to dictate what I think they should be doing with the events, and everyone's got their own ideas as well. So there you go.
Yeah. No, very good. I think very well put.
Cool.
We should get you on for a proper one of these at some stage, where we're not just talking about other people jumping off stuff, and we should do an Anan episode.
I'm always down.
Yeah, we should do it. Let's talk Farang for a second. Sure. I see. Well, actually, how's the hardcore parkour? Are you still planning on keeping that thing?
We're slacking hard on that. Actually,
I enjoy them.
I do enjoy them as well, but it was just it's so hard for me. It's kind of mine to kind of push forward. Jason and the other athletes are busy doing their thing, so this is kind of my responsibility. But I guess I suffer a lack of motivation when I'm so, I'm in Thailand, I'm far away from everything. I'm so disconnected from the people I want to talk to. And generally these Skype conversations, they're quite difficult, because when you can't, there's a bit of a delay, and you can't there's no that natural back and forth. So everyone's just kind of
this kind of thing is like
waiting for the other person to stop speaking.
like we just had there.
Exactly,
it's like you get these
it's quite hard.
Little awkward. But this kind of thing is all right, because obviously we're talking about a specific topic, and it's like there's literally stuff to just talk about. But it's when you want that personal connection and little funny moments, it is so much nicer in person.
Which is why I totally dropped the bucket. I dropped the ball by not doing any podcast interviews while I was in Italy, while I had access to all those people. But in my defense, there was other stuff going on.
It is the hardest environment.
We were working on the competition, and I had my whole team for the first time was in town all together. Yeah. And so we were just really gung-ho about getting as much content out as we could together that week. So my priorities were just not with the podcast. But I promise I will pick it up again sooner than later.
It's my dog walking entertainment along with other podcasts, but it is nice to hear parkour content that isn't
I would have done this, but I did really want someone sitting on the other side of this conversation to kind of balance me out, because it feels a little too defensive or weird just speaking at an audience for too long.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of Farang, so you had everyone together. I saw you were shooting some what did you get up to? I mean, you got new stuff, so I'm assuming lookbooks and
so we
things.
we did a Matera shoot that's coming out next, and also a bunch of new prototypes for our winter collection show. We shot a lookbook video.
Nice.
And what else?
I'm seeing a splash of lavender. I said purple, but Kelan said lavender.
Lavender, I think, is accurate. It is.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. I think it's a nice. It gives nice contrast to our usual black and gray, which we still do have. There is a black version of that coming with it for the people who aren't digging the lavender as the more safe pick. But it's actually pretty cool. I'm enjoying it. We got the lavender hoodie and the socks. That's gonna be fun.
Oh, you got socks as well?
Yeah.
Oh, nice. I'm wearing your socks right now, as always. They are literally the the go-to socks for me. We actually coincidentally have a much more vibrant splash of purple in one of our graphics coming soon as well.
Just that high saturation. We seem to shadow each other's color picks, don't we?
It's very strange, actually. This print was originally a completely different color, and then the guy who was helping us with it just like sent across a version and was like, "What do you think of this?" And it had this like, highly saturated kind of splash of purple. It's quite in your face, and I was like, "That's sick." I was like, "It's sick." So, maybe the hoodie and the socks and the t-shirt can all complement each other.
All right, cool. I'm keen. Hey, you're gonna get it before Christmas, right? This time?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I remember that being a big problem for you last year.
Oh, this year is even still just been a fucking nightmare. But I think our podcast listeners are sick of listening about that. But we'll finally we'll get up and smoothly running eventually.
Awesome.
So we're getting there. But anyway, I should probably go and help tidy the house because I know Sarah's
Thank you for this conversation.
No, thank you very much.
Cool.
Actually, I'll hit stop and then we'll end this properly.
Goodbye, y'all.
All right, 2 seconds. Bye. Well, that was pretty wicked, wasn't it? Nice little listen. Interesting bits. Hopefully shut a few people up. There were some people who literally were like, DD didn't deserve to get into the fucking final. He didn't deserve to win. It's like, he's an outstanding athlete. You're not a judge. You're probably shit at parkour. And shut up. So, the moon, by the way, is looking fantastic tonight, if anyone cares, but you're not here. And also, if you can hear some weird noises, Sarah's just got out of the bath and is, I don't know, doing naked things. So, ooh, naked. This is what happens when it's just me chatting shit. I didn't say at the start, Motus Prodcast, welcome. Hello, host Giles. Here's Kelan. Hello. That's not how Kelan speaks. Hopefully we'll be back within the next week with your regular scheduling. But, shit's on fire, isn't it? We're posting stuff on Instagram with, like, subtle little things on fire. Multi-fit pants and trousers, depending on what country you're from. Because why would you call trousers pants? Fuck it, we're going to call them pants, because apparently that's what everyone does. But really, your pants are the bit that covers up your willy and your vagina. And the trousers are your trousers. We're releasing them for pre-sale on Friday. That's what all the little fire things about. It will start to be more apparent as the week goes on. Came up with a funny marketing idea. Didn't quite think it through, as you will see in some of the stuff. We're going to have to use the word multi-fit trousers. Otherwise, it looks like we're selling a pair of boxers. If you ignore that, I think the thing we came up with is quite funny. But yeah, they're releasing for pre-sale on Friday, and for the sake of pure Motus Prodcast transparency, we're looking like we're going to receive them early November. You guys are all aware. We just spoke about it with me and Anan very briefly. Many delays. The light is at the end of the tunnel and it is getting brighter and brighter. And these trousers are, honest to God, the best product we've ever made. Unless the factory fucks us, which it might. But so far, the samples, everything, absolutely outstanding. Coming in black and grey. £60 is what they're going to cost for those of you who want to, get your wallets ready. 6 p.m. Friday. That'll be the thing. But you won't, unless you don't listen to this. And if you're listening to this, then obviously you know what I'm talking about. What am I saying? If you just follow us on Instagram and you don't listen to the podcast, then you're not going to hear this early information. You're going to have to wait a few days. But if you do listen to this, which you are, then you're ahead of the game. So well done to you. And TMP. What am I talking about? I've forgotten it. There's a discount code, isn't there? I think it's Prodcast 10. It is. It's Prodcast 10. Gets you 10% off the store. And I know this has been a slow year in terms of actually having stock and stuff, and our postage hasn't been quite up to scratch, but trust me, it is getting fixed. It's going to be banging, and I'm slowly starting to climb out of the mental pit of despair that I've been swimming in, but that's chat for another episode. I'll stop waffling now. Sorry, Kelan. I appreciate you, and I'm sure the listeners do as well. Subscribe, like, etc., etc. Cheers, Anan. This episode was a banger. Love you. Bye.